From the mythological cycle. Blackbirds. Uchi walked. The grass was cool and soft beneath his bare feet, lush with the promise of new summer's growth. He knew himself to be walking through fields behind the house of his father, Irk, and that it was Bealtaine, for the smell of the smoke of their fires was on the air, lingering from the night before when the driving of the beasts between flame had added the tinge of singed hair and hide to the heady wood smoke scent piling into the sky. Stopping to breathe it deeply, he closed his eyes to the sound of trees rustling on the boundary of his father's fields, and felt the gathering warmth of the sun caress his face and neck, while his feet drew damp and cool dew from the grass. Opening his eyes, he looked at how the light sparkled through this collecting water, tiny fire gem points dotting through rolling green pasture. It made his feet cold from below, despite the heat on his head and neck from above, though he wondered briefly what had happened to his shoes. Trees rustled again, leaves and boughs slipping and scraping a little off each other in the gathering breeze. With that wind came a new smell. Rolling in across the open ground came a musty, ripe odor that crept into his nostrils like something living, trying to make its crawling way inside his head. Each gust brought a new waft, an aroma he couldn't quite place, so out of place with all he knew here. And the smell of salt in the air, mingling with the soft reek of old, decaying things. The squall roughened around him, his clothing now moving with the twisting airstreams flowing over the land, harrying the longer grasses and causing chaos in the branches of the trees. He watched them bend and snap together, sensing from behind him the approach of the source of that odor, so alien to him, even as the sky began to darken overhead. He didn't want to see it, whatever was coming, though he could feel its approach gathering strength and power, just as he knew the people of his father's land were rising against what came. He saw them appear on the horizon, a mass of running, shouting bodies entering the field, as if towards a vigorous battle, with shouts and raised weapons, their shining spears and swords pointing to the sky. Yet it gave him no comfort, knowing these brave folk gathered, for he could smell them and hear the storm from behind him. Then the raucous calls of the great black birds he now saw with his eyes as the air blackened around him, and he dropped to the grass to escape their mass against the sky. The cold of his bare feet spread quickly without the warming comfort of the sun on his skin, as the birds flew overhead in a seemingly endless stream of dark feathers and noise. His people fought them bravely, but ahead always confusion, destruction, until the cold earth became the chill of a grave, the dark depth of a hollow hill, and he understood he would never feel warmth again in his life. A brief respite as one of his father's folk raised from the fray, rushing towards the noblest of the birds, as he could see it, and struck off one of its wings, so the iron tang of its blood reeked through them, clearing a path back towards him as they veered and swerved to avoid the bright red among the black clouding his vision, and the stink of old iron from a forest floor wound its way through his brain. Uchi awoke. Complete darkness still surrounded him, but it was the enclosing safety of the rath walls, a little stale and dew the fresh earth coating after a long winter. That would be one of the first jobs of the summer. The cold remained, seeped deep into his bones, from the clammy dream sweat covering his skin and his bare feet, having kicked off the bed covering in his dream thrashing, fighting off birds? Yes, a great flock of black birds coming from the depths of the ocean. They settled over all of the land and fought with the people of Ireland. They brought confusion and destroyed his people, though one of them had struck the noblest of the birds and cut off one of its wings. Tomorrow he would ask the druid Cassard what it might mean. Tonight, though, this Monday of the first week in May, he would return to sleep, for the work was all around him now the Bealtaine of feasting was done. And so he did that night return to his slumber. But he could not quite shake the memory of the tang of iron on the air. And that's not the first or the last time that someone got a portent of things to come on the island of Ireland. By no means is it. But sure, they are all stories for another day. And just an interesting note, we see the Tuatha De Danann now as, the shining people, the warrior folk, the gods of Ireland. But it's important to remember that they came here as invaders from a certain point of view. No story is ever simple. Slán go fóill. I'll see you in the next video.